Hi, I'm Linda from neartozero.com. Thank you for joining us again for lesson 3 in our Learning from COVID-19 to Create a More Sustainable Life free e-course. This time I want to focus on creating and sustaining more sustainable food and kitchen habits. So how have our food habits changed during this pandemic? Well, the first thing is that we're not dining out. Our dining rooms are closed for restaurants. We're not able to have this option at all. This could be a positive or a negative, both for our family life, but also for the environment. But it is a major change in our habit, for some more so than others, right? Another habit that has changed in our food buying is that we're buying more packaged goods. Packaged goods are generally not as good for our health or for the environment for the obvious reason that they are surrounded by plastic or aluminum or, different types of packaging. Those packagings can be recycled, but oftentimes they are not and they end up right in the landfill. Um, and even if they are recyclable, if there are other options like buying in bulk or buying fresh, those are generally better options both for our health, but for the health of the environment as well. However, during this time, a lot of us are trying to minimize our grocery store visits, so we're buying things with longer shelf lives. The third major way that our food habits are changing, and not necessarily for the better, is that we're ordering a lot more takeout. Takeout, when we purchase it, generally comes to our home packaged in some sort of takeout container that is disposable. Depending on the materials that they use, they can be recycled, but oftentimes if it's styrofoam, for example, it has to just go straight to the landfill. Um, those are three major ways that our food habits are changing and directly due to this pandemic, and a lot of those ways are not necessarily positive. But how can we grow from these changes? So we want to talk about selecting food and kitchen habits that you want to keep. Like maybe you are not dining out as much, but you're making more meals from scratch at home. Or you are being more creative with the recipes that you're using because you might be missing an ingredient. And hey, you don't want to go to the grocery store to buy that one ingredient that you're going to use one time. So instead, you use something that you already have. Habits that you want to change, like ordering a lot of takeout. Instead, maybe you want to opt to go back to restaurants more often so that you can take your own takeout container if you have leftovers, for example. And then possibly new ones that you want to develop during the pandemic and afterwards. And we do have a PDF with a list of possible positive food and kitchen habits that you could develop during this time. But let's get down to the really important thing is that why do our food habits matter? Why would we take the time to focus on food and kitchen habits specifically? Livestock contributes to 14.5% of greenhouse gas emissions. So the rearing of cows, sheep, pigs, all of that contributes to quite a large percentage of our greenhouse gas emissions. So reducing our meat and dairy consumption would be a great way to help reduce our carbon footprint. The food production in general uses up 40% of our land and 70% of our fresh water. And a big majority of that, again, goes to livestock rather than, vegetables and fruits. Food production causes species extinction, again, because of the use of land, thinking about deforestation and things like that, as well as monoculture, pesticides, all these things that cause species extinction. 80% of water bottles never get recycled. So this is a way that our food habits, the way that we purchase our food and beverages in this case, impact our environment negatively in terms of our waste. A lot of those bottles that we say, oh, well, hey, at least it's recyclable, they're not getting recycled. Mostly because a lot of us take that portable disposable water bottle with us when we're out for a walk or we're out on the town. And guess what? It's empty. We're not going to carry that empty water bottle around waiting for a recycling bin when there's a trash can right there. And a lot of us would just opt to throw it right in the trash. And food waste is 30 to 40% of our food supply. That means that 30 to 40% of our food supply is being wasted. And that food waste causes a lot of, wasted waste during our food production, as well as the actual waste that goes into landfill that creates methane gas and more emissions. So reducing our food waste is really important in order to reduce our overall impact on the earth. So I just gave you a lot of statistics. So again, we're going to take a pause. When you're ready, go ahead and stop the video for a moment and look at your habits back from lesson 1. I also want to suggest that you look at our new PDF. Our PDF is here to describe to you some positive changes that you can implement in regards to your food and kitchen habits. So go ahead and take a pause, look at that list that you made from before, look at the PDF, look at the ones that seem appealing to you, that you think you might want to take on. And when you are done looking those over, go ahead and start the video back up and we'll see you back. So you are back. So I guess that means you took your pause, you looked over your habits that you wrote about before, perhaps you thought of some new ones, and you may have been looking at that PDF that gave you some suggestions of food habits. And some of them you might have said, hey, I'm doing that already. Or some of them you might have said, oh, that might be a great idea to start. So how can I start making a change? First of all, I want you to go ahead and look again at what you've written on that list. Some of those positive changes that you've already made, you've already started. So that's really great. The second thing is that the negative habits on that list, you're identifying them. And when you identify something, that's when you're able to target it and change it in your life. Without putting a name to it, without identifying it, it could just go completely unnoticed, and you could continue to follow in some of those habits that you might not be so happy about. So I want you to pick one new habit to keep. That new habit, that you've developed that's on your list and you're like, wow, that was really great. I really enjoyed that. For me, my one new habit is probably adapting my recipes a little bit more. For example, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, I could not find flour. And I was looking for flour to make cookies with my daughter. It's an activity we like to do. And we didn't have enough for our recipe. So I said, okay, let's go buy flour. But then I realized, A, I didn't really want to go to the grocery store, and B, I remembered that the last time I had been, there wasn't any flour available. So we made meringues instead because they didn't need flour. So I adapted what we were doing. We still made cookies. We still had a great time, but I made a recipe that didn't require that. If it was something like vanilla extract that I was missing, maybe there's a different extract that I could have used instead. The second way that you can start making a change is to pick 2 habits that you want to change or discard completely after the pandemic. Like, for example, perhaps you want to reduce the amount of takeout you're eating and opt for dining in options and then taking your own to-go container for leftovers. Another habit that I personally would like to discard completely, or at least change to an extreme, is the purchasing of packaged goods. I want to go back to going to the farmer's market. I want to go back to buying food in bulk. And during this time, I started making some more of my own food from scratch, and that was a really rewarding experience that I would like to try to maintain. And finally, use that PDF. That PDF has a lot of great ideas that you can implement in your own life. If there are two of those on there that really speak to you, that you are not currently doing yet, that you think you can start doing, go ahead and choose two. If there's more than two, that's awesome. If there's only one, that's okay too. But use that as inspiration or a jumping off point to making new habits that you haven't started yet, but that you think you can implement in your life. And as usual, we want to leave you with one quick tip so that you have something that you can take away right now and start working on. And that for me today is to tell you that to reduce your paper clutter. In the past video, we talked about refusing and reducing. And one of the first things that I started refusing was junk mail. And that really impacted my life in a lot of different ways. Not only was my house more clutter-free, which was really rewarding, but it was also the fact that I wasn't feeling wasteful getting all these ads. The second thing is I wasn't getting the ads, which made it easier for me to not want to go shopping. And when, again, we're working on refusing and reducing the amount we're shopping, that was a great way to get started. I wasn't getting the 20% off coupons. I wasn't getting the catalogs for places that I shopped at once and never want to shop at again necessarily, or will go back when it's time for a new pair of shoes or whatever it is. But um, I want to suggest to you that now is a great time to start reducing your paper clutter. If you go to neartozero.com, there is a great article about how to opt out of a lot of the junk mail that you get. A lot of it has its own process in order to eliminate it from your home completely. But I'm telling you, it is a very rewarding way to get started with refusing and reducing. And it's something that you could be doing right now during this time as well. So with that, thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time for our fourth video on learning from COVID-19 to create a more sustainable life.